To begin the next session, would you please welcome to the stage Executive Coach and Founder of the Trusted Executive Foundation, Mr. John Blakey.
Good morning, AHIC. Thank you for coming back. And thank you for inviting me to the 15th gathering of this trusted community. And my topic this morning is trust, so I congratulate you on building this trusted community in the hotel and hospitality sector. Whenever I stand on a stage like this, I have to ask myself the question, why am I here? Because I'm a great fan of Simon Sinek and his golden circle, and Simon Sinek's phrase, start with why. So plenty of what questions, plenty of how questions, but let's start with the why question. Why am I here? Well, I'm here partly because in 2016, I wrote a book called The Trusted Executive, 9 Leadership Habits that Inspire Results, Relationships, and Reputation. But more importantly, I'm here because Jonathan Worsley, my good friend, told me that there would be many leaders in the house at AHIC this morning. So I want to check, have we got some leaders in the house this morning? Give me a show of hands if you are a leader of your team, your brand, your sector, or your organization. Thank you. So I'm in the right place. I know why I'm here. Now, I've done a deal this morning with Jennifer and Annie from Bench because the conference is a number of minutes behind schedule. And I was scheduled to speak for 20 minutes, but I've done a deal because Annie and Jennifer have told me that they'll love me for the rest of their lives if I stick to 10 minutes. And the love of a woman is a very important thing. So I've accepted the deal, and I'm going to go for the 10-minute sprint, the 10-minute dash on trust. If it piques your curiosity and your imagination, I'm doing a longer hour-and-a-half session this afternoon in the discussion room. So please join me later if you want more on trust. But I'm glad I've got the leaders in the house this morning because I have a message for all of you leaders. And I have a message that comes from a gentleman called Mr. Robert Zimmerman. How many of you can tell me what Mr. Robert Zimmerman's stage name is? Anybody know his name? Please shout it out. Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan indeed. So I have a message from Bob Dylan that he wrote for you and all you leaders this morning. Let me read that message from Mr. Robert Zimmerman. Come gather around, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changin'. Yes, the times they are a-changin'. That song was written in 1964, the year that I was born. Bob Dylan had a premonition that the 60s was going to be a great time of change, societal change. And I'm here really this morning to give you another premonition that the next 10 years will see another great time of societal change. The times indeed are a-changin'. And for us as leaders, the essence of that paradigm shift that we are facing is a shift from leadership that trusted in power to leadership that relies on the power of trust. So in the old world, our intellectual ability and our authority was the currency of leadership. But in this new world, we will be dealing in the currency of trust. And trust is a very different currency to power. What defines whether I trust you or not is your ability, your integrity, and most importantly, your benevolence. And if we don't start as leaders swimming in that direction of trust, then we can expect that our leadership will sink like a stone and our brands will sink like a stone. Because they are losing trust in us. They, the followers, are losing trust in us, the leaders. The falcon can no longer hear the falconer. What I'm showing you on the slide here is the results of the Edelman Global Trust Barometer, a survey of 33,000 people across 28 countries. And what this slide is telling us is that 1 in 2 countries have lost faith in the system. The mustard-colored countries on this graph are mainly the Western developed liberal democracies. And we see that in those countries, over half the population don't get it anymore. Over half the population is renewing whether we still have the license to lead. And of course, I come from the United Kingdom, where at the moment Brexit is a very palpable expression of the debate that's going on between the leaders and the followers. And that's a debate that's going on in the streets of London, in the streets of Paris, in the streets of Algiers, in the streets of Rio de Janeiro, in the streets of Washington. So for us to renew our license to lead, we need to synchronize with the followers. For us to have that synchronized success, we're going to need to synchronize with these people who are looking for something different in their leadership. And as a quick aside, you'll notice on this slide that the UAE is the country in which most people have most faith in the system. So whatever you are doing in the UAE, I congratulate you. And we come here to learn. We come here to learn about trust and how we build trust, because we need to learn and we need to replicate that in other economies and societies. So where does this fit with you as a leader? My own research on trust at Aston Business School in the UK was really to get at what is the importance of the CEO and the leadership team in walking the talk with trust. How important is it for you to role model specific behaviors if you're going to build a high trust culture and a high trust brand? And what I can tell you is that your country needs you, your organization needs you, your team needs you, your leadership matters, because the research identifies that the biggest single factor in building a high trust culture and a high trust brand is your behavior. It is that leadership by example and that role modeling of specific behaviors that ripples trust into the rest of your culture and then drives sustainable results, inspiring relationships, and a cast iron brand reputation. The other aspect of my research on trust is that I work as an executive coach. I've worked with 120 CEOs in 22 different countries as an executive coach. And the CEOs that get it, that get that we are shifting from this world of power to this world of trust, they get to the point where they ask me as a coach, okay, John, I get it intellectually, but how do I make this shift in the muscle? How do I make this shift in the leadership muscle? What behaviors do I need to change as I invest in my brand and I position my brand in this high trust space? How do I also invest in my leadership and put my leadership behaviors in this space? And from the research now, we can answer those leaders and say the way that you do this shift, there are 9 behavioral habits that we need to master as leaders if we're going to renew our license to lead in a world that relies on the power of trust. Those 9 habits, 3 habits under the pillar of ability, 3 habits under the pillar of integrity, and 3 habits under the pillar of benevolence. Some of these habits we'll be familiar with from the world of power. We know that we've always had to deliver. We know that we've needed to be honest, even if we have not always stepped up to that mark. And we know that great leadership has always involved being brave and being courageous to some degree. But there are some new habits, some habits that many of us in leadership will find much harder to relearn and unlearn and learn again. For example, the leaders at Boeing right now are having to learn a lot about the habit of being open. Being open involves being vulnerable. It involves acknowledging that we all make mistakes. And we can't have that authoritarian approach when mistakes happen, that we look to discourse the blame to others. So I think at Boeing at the moment, we are seeing a lot of soul searching around how are we going to handle our mistakes and how open are we going to be about those mistakes And how do I, as the chief executive, communicate with my followers in order to keep their trust in light of a mistake? The habit of being kind. I think we've all got a lot to learn from Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, a lady who, in the aftermath of the Christchurch massacre, has role modeled being kind as a leadership trait, and almost overnight has become a global sensation of leadership. So that power of kindness, I call it the purple dye of trust. All it takes is one drop and it changes the whole complexion of a situation. And finally, the habit of being humble. In the world that trusted in power, as long as we were successful, then arrogance would be tolerated. But I don't think Jacinda Ardern drives an electric blue Lamborghini with red and black leather seats. I doubt very much if she drives a car like that. And she doesn't drive a car like that not because a brand consultant told her that it would be a bad idea, but because she just doesn't want to drive a car like that. It's not what she stands for. It's not what she wakes up and thinks about as a leader who is relying on the power of trust, because that is the humility and the humbleness of the new leadership that we are searching for. So those are the 9 habits of trust. That is your leadership. Your leadership matters. If you're interested in unpacking those habits in more detail, if you're interested in understanding why have we got to this point in the leadership cycle where synchronizing with success now means focusing upon trust rather than power, then please join me this afternoon for the longer session when we'll look at the 9 habits and how you can get those habits into your leadership muscle and start to be that light that is shining in the darkness that we have at the moment in terms of the trust levels in a lot of our societies. I'd like to give the last words of this session back to my leadership guru, Mr. Robert Zimmerman. I'll leave you with a final message from our friend Bob Dylan. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall, for he that gets hurt will be he who has stalled. There's a battle outside and it's raging. It'll soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing. Yes, the times they are a-changing. Thank you very much.